Hi everybody, Dr. Gustin here. I just wanted to do a quick summary of cellular respiration. This is something that I've already mentioned earlier in this handout actually, and we're going to talk about it again when we get to muscles. So it's something that is very important, and I really like for the human biology students to get out of this course having some understanding of this process. One of the main reasons I like you to understand it, well, a couple of the reasons, is it's really central to all of our metabolism. And I think a lot of people, everybody knows we eat and we breathe and we exhale and all that. But really, this gives you the reason why we do all that. And it gives you the chemical basis for why we need that food and why we need that oxygen and why we exhale carbon dioxide. In addition, when you take, I know a lot of you are doing this for maybe a pre-nursing requirement or to take A&P for something like that. And you'll talk about this in A&P in a lot more detail. And you'll also talk about this in microbiology in a lot more detail. So to have a basic understanding of what cellular respiration is at this point can be really helpful for a lot of students. So the bottom line is we're talking about in this section where we say cells can use and transform matter and energy. There's a lot more information in this section than what I'm going to ask you to know. And so read the sections that are relevant to the topics that I've bulleted here. But like I said, all the extra things about glycolysis and Krebs, you'll get a little bit more of that in A&P and micro, but not in this class. So I'm looking for the big picture. So the bottom line is that in cellular respiration, what we're trying to do is giving you an equation or overall chemical equation for what most of our cells are doing all the time to keep our metabolism going. And so it asks you to write an overall equation for cellular respiration. So I'm going to put it right here. And you really want to memorize this and understand where it comes from. Because like I said, it's going to come up again. So glucose, which is food, and hopefully you remember glucose is our blood sugar. And then we also breathe in oxygen. I'm going to just put O2. And that's the beginning of the reaction. So that's what we have to start off with. And so glucose plus oxygen. And we breathe in oxygen because of this process. And what are we going to end up with? We're going to end up with carbon dioxide, CO2, plus actually water, but it's not even that important at this point at the level that you're doing it. But the other main thing that we're ending up with is ATP. And so hopefully by now, the products of this reaction are carbon dioxide and ATP. And there's actually some water in there, but I don't even care if you remember that. So hopefully you're looking at that and going, okay, this sounds familiar. Glucose, we said, is a carbohydrate. It's a monosaccharide. It's our blood sugar. It's what our cells use for energy. Oxygen, we breathe it in. We need to do that for this metabolic pathway. And we said there's more than 20 enzymes involved in this, where glucose, the energy from glucose is converted into ATP. Hopefully by now you've gotten the point that ATP is kind of that energy currency for cells. I like to think of ATP as kind of cash. You can make a basket, but you can't go to Wegmans and buy groceries with the basket you just made. They're going to think you're crazy. You've got to convert that basket into money. So you've got to sell the basket to somebody, get some money, and then you can go to Wegmans and buy groceries. So money is our common currency, dollars. And cells have the same thing going on. Their common currency for energy is ATP. Glucose has a lot of energy, but through metabolism, we convert that energy into ATP, and cells can use that to grow in anabolism. Okay, so that's the overall equation. And so we talk a little bit about that. I want you to memorize that equation. And remember that, everybody knows that we don't just eat glucose. Our diet would be really boring. And we eat things like fats and proteins. And so our cells actually convert things like fats and proteins into glucose. Also, remember we had that polysaccharide glycogen that our cells make when we eat excess glucose or we have excess energy, we store it as glycogen, fats, and sometimes even proteins. So we're going to use these other molecules for food also. So we use glucose as our starting point, but we can use other foods to make glucose. The last thing I just want to mention, and I'm going to have you look it over, you're guided to look it over through this handout, is occasionally we run out of oxygen. And think about the last time you had muscles that were burning. You might have been lifting weights or running or something like that. The reason why they're burning is because they're running out of oxygen. And so instead of doing cellular respiration, glucose plus oxygen, to get our ATP, we do something more, we do it that pathway anaerobically. And again, your book goes into details about this pathway. I won't give you the details, but the point is, if we're running out of oxygen, we can still get a little bit more ATP synthesized in our cells, particularly our muscle cells, in order to keep us going. So it doesn't last forever. Once those muscles start burning, it doesn't last forever. But remember, those cells are making a product called lactic acid, which makes your muscles burn. But what it does is it allows your muscles to function for a little bit longer in the absence of oxygen. So instead of making ATP from glucose and oxygen, it's going to do it from glucose without oxygen. Okay, and so we can do that for a short time. All right, so cellular respiration. Hopefully that's a little bit of a help. If you need more help with it, stop by an office hour, make a point with me, and we can talk. Take care.